Yeah, so we were halfway through the commentary of Madhudana on our great commentator Madhusudana Saraswati on the verse number 30th. I think we were almost done. There was a little left. The verse number 31st. So, Anaditvat Nirgunatvat Paramatmayam ayam avyayah sarirasthopi kaunteya na karoti na lipyate. This Paramatma, because it is Nirguna and it is Anadi, ayam avyayah, and this particular Atma is avyaya. There is no modification in it, there is no change in it. So, even if it inhabits all the human bodies, even though it lives in all the bodies, it is not affected by any karma which is performed thus. And he will explain why. Because whatever activities we see as happening, and these activities we attribute to the Brahman or the Atma, which is inhabiting in all of us, we are doing this attribution as a result of what? As a result of our ignorance. That foundation alone is true. All this, as we mentioned earlier, Bhuta Pratak Bhavam Ekastam Anupashyati. The wise one sees that all these differences between man and woman, nationalities, castes, social identities, income brackets, everything, these are imaginary. These are Vyavaharika. Not to reject them as completely false, but that is only an appearance. And beneath these appearance is that foundational truth, which is the Atma or the Brahman. And that is an important aspect. In fact, that gives us a very good ground to arrange our social and political thoughts. That the primary basis of our philosophical tradition is to emphasize unity and harmony. The differences, the contradictions, the conflicts that we see at a surface level are because of our ignorance. That is what it says. Tata eva cha vistaram brahma sampadhyate. Tata he gets that brahmatva. Brahmavid brahmeva bhavati. So we were doing the Madhusudana Tika, and there was a little of it left. We'll quickly do it and then go to Shankara Bhashya. So Anaditvat, why he's mentioning that is refuting that actually there is no modification in Bhagavan or the Brahman. Adihi Prag Sattva Prag Aswatva Avastha. So, like for example, you make a cake. Was it there before the cake was made? That is the prior. So that Prag Abhava is the Nyaya. They call it Prag Abhava. Anything that comes into being, like for example, if you look at this tiny book, was it existing before it came into being? No. What it was having, there was a Prag Abhava Avastha, or you can call it Prag Asatva Avastha. Then this Gita Press published that small Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, there it is Anadi. What is Adi? What is beginning? If you say that something started, this book was made in the press, or our body was made. So before we were conceived by our mothers, where were you? How do you describe yourself? There was Prag Asatva Avastha. There was the initial absence of us. This absence of us was replaced by our existence. That is for what? Anything which has an arambha, which has a beginning. But this prag asatva avastha as a state doesn't apply in case of Brahman because it doesn't have a cause. Anything which can have a beginning will have a cause, but it doesn't have a cause, it doesn't have a beginning. Sa nasti sarvada satah atmanah, because that is sarvada sat, trikala sat, So atah tasya karana bhavat janama bhavah. There is no cause, and therefore there is no birth. Nahi etad, nahi anadehe janma sambhavati. Anything which is anadi, which has no cause, you cannot say that it is being born. So this atma is not born, it doesn't die. Tad abhave. Tad here is janma. Janma abhave cha. Tad uttara bhavino bhava vikaraha na sambhavati eva. बच्चा पैदा होगा तो वो बड़ा होगा, बूढ़ा होगा, मरेगा. जो पैदा नहीं हुआ है वो बच्चा कभी नहीं था, बड़ा भी नहीं होगा, मरेगा भी नहीं. That is, in short, he's saying what doesn't have a birth will not have any growth, and then this viparinama, apakshaya, vinasa. These things will not follow. The sarvikaras, as we discussed, will not apply to the atma because it has no beginning, and therefore the story that it will start, moving, and it'll stand and it'll start walking, go to school, become a teenager, then grow up, look for a job, marry, have children, become a middle-aged person, then he'll become old, then he'll fall ill and fall dead. No, these things don't follow. Because if the beginning isn't there, the consequent stories, the consequent stages of growth and degradation, or and that doesn't follow. Sa nasti sarvada satah atmanah atah tasya karanabhava janmabhavah nahi anadir janma sambhavati tadbhavecha tad uttarabhavino bhava vikara na sambhavati eva atah na surupena vyeti. Therefore, Atma by itself doesn't modify, doesn't undergo any changes. Dityam nirakaroti. Maybe certain other factors. So that is Dityam nirakaroti nirgunatvatiti. Right? So what was the nirguna? Either swabhavata he does it, or there is some kind of a change in dharma. There were two options. Either the dharmi itself undergoes some changes, or the dharmas change, and therefore we can say that there is some change in this person, in the sense that a person's, for example, he was a very intelligent person, very sharp guy, he's a great batsman, but is unable to play shots. He's thrown out of the team. So there is some dharma abhava, some change in the dharma that a skill set or whatever the gunas, and therefore we say the guni has undergone some changes because of the changes in the gunas or the qualities of the dharma that he has, and he will say dityam nirakaroti nirgunatvat. Okay, but guna ka change hoega. How gunas can change? Only if there is guna. But Brahman, the Upanishads say, is nirguna. So if it is nirguna, then what changes in guna can you imagine to say that changes in these gunas are responsible for the Brahman undergoing changes? So all the human beings, we are different from each other. That is an appearance. We say that we have qualities. Brahman doesn't have any qualities. So we cannot attribute what we are doing to the Brahman, which sort of abides and permeates and pervades all of us, abides in all of us. It's always there, but it doesn't have any relationship with us. And he will give us some examples in the next verse. द्वितीयं निराकरोति निर्गुणत्वात् निर्धर्मकत्वात् इत्यर्थः न हि धर्मिणम् अधिकृत्य कश्चित् धर्म उपेति अपेति वा धर्मधर्मिणोः तादात्म्यात्. And then you cannot say that nahi dharminam adhikritya. So kaschit dharma upeti apeti va dharma dharminoho tadatmyat, because dharma and dharmi cannot be separated. And you cannot talk about upachaya or apachaya of dharma without taking into consideration the dharmi. When the dharmi has been defined as nirdharmaka, nirguna, then we cannot talk about apachaya or upachaya. Apachaya means decline, upachaya means rise or decline in the qualities. I'm tu nirdharmaka ataha na dharma dwarapi vyeti, and therefore by virtue of change in qualities, Brahman cannot undergo any changes. So it's achala, niskriya, nirguna, that is established. Avinasiva, are ayam atma, anuchitti dharma iti shrutehe. And this is also very mentioned in the Upanishad that this atma is anuchitti dharma. Dharma is just gauna prayoga. Actually, it has no dharma, but it has no laws. It's always there. We always are doing the Santi mantras in the beginning. Purnamadaha Purnamidam. It's always full. It's complete. It's perfect. There is no changes in it. श्रुतेः यस्माद् एषा जायते अस्ति वर्धते विपरिणमते अपक्षीयते विनश्यति इत्येवं षड्भाव विकार शून्यः. This atma is free from these sad vikaras, that the baby is born, it stabilizes, it grows, and then undergoes some changes, then there is decline, it falls dead. These sad vikaras don't apply. आध्यासिकेन संबंधेन Sarirasthopi, and then this Atma is in Sarira. In what sense? Through Adhyasa. Actually, really, it's not there, but it appears as if it is coterminous with this physical body. Tasmin kurvati ayam atma na kurvati. And therefore, when the body, there are certain physical activities, this Atma is not involved in it because it is just a superimposition. Tatha adhyasikena sambandhena jalastha savita. Tasmin chalati api na chalati eva tadvat. What is the good example is giving? Imagine that there is a riverbed, okay? And sorry, there's the water surface in the river, and you are standing. Let's imagine the water is perfectly crystal clear, and the sun is getting reflected on it. And when the water is flowing, you look at the sun. Is it stable? It appears as if the sun, which is reflected on that water surface, which is moving, is also moving. There is vibration in it. Is there any vibration in the sun? No. But the reflected sun has a lot of vibration. Similarly, the Atma, which is Sarvagata, Sarvavyapaka, it is everywhere. It appears as if that Atma is doing things and there are modifications because we are looking at the reflection of that primary truth in lives of ours. That reflected sun appears as if it is moving. The sun isn't moving. The Atma isn't moving. The Atma is not undergoing any kind of modification. What is undergoing modification? The body. Why we think the Atma is undergoing modification? Because of a superimposition. We think I am this body. The body is undergoing changes because of our ignorance. Because we identify with this body, we also are afraid we are going to die. We are not going to die. We are going to abandon this body. That's it. We might take more bodies. The consciousness which we are, that is pure, that is permanent. So, what we are talking about life and death is only about purva, papa, punya, krita, this whole karma thing. This is the body born out of our karmas, and this body will fall one day. You might love this body, it has to be abandoned, and it will be burned also. So the sannyasi is always advised to walk around in the cremation ground once in a while, Shmashana Darshana, so that you should identify the place where your body will also be burned. What is so special about it? Because you can also actually watch it when it's burning, because you're not this body. And where would you go? It's a very interesting question. Where have you come? You haven't come either. You are always Sarvagata. If you realize you are not different from the Brahman, you are never born and you are never going to die. So that is the consolation of Vedantic philosophy. It removes all fears because fears are born out of limited understanding of who we are. Once we remove those limitations, we immediately realize the infinite truth that we represent through our very presence. Okay, Jasmat eva jayate asti, that we have already done. Na karoti. So, like the sun appears as if it is moving, the Atma appears as if it is doing things. Jata no karati kinchidapi karma, atah kenapi karma phalena na lipyate. So, if you hadn't gone to the office on a certain day and there was some problem in the office, can the boss call you and hold you responsible for some mischief which happened? Maybe a theft, maybe a quarrel between two colleagues of yours, and the boss calls you and asks you, why did you cause the quarrel? You say, no, I was absent. I was not there in the office. Same way, this Atma is not doing anything. So you cannot attribute Papa Punya to the Atma. This Papa Punya, this Sanskara, is in that particular small hole or nut called the Jiva, which again is an illusory reality, phenomenally true. Everything is not false. Then the samsara will not be there. There'll be no need for Vedanta, no need for family, no need for. All these are phenomenally real, not to reject them fully. But the message of the Bhagavad Gita is look beyond what is phenomenally real, because only what is ultimately real is going to grant us freedom from this phenomena, which might give us temporary happiness or sadness. So, तथा आध्यासिकेन संबंधेन जलस्थ सविता, that we have done, केनापि कर्मफलेन न लिप्यति, यह ही यत् कर्म करोति स तत्फलेन लिप्यते, जो जैसा काम करता है उसका फल उसे मिलता है, लेकिन आत्मा कुछ करता नहीं है. अकर्तृत्वाद इत्यर्थः, because the atma is akarta, doesn't do anything. This ahankara mamakara gives us that feeling that we are doing anything. And if we identify with the body, we are doing a lot of things through our mind, through our hands, through our indriyas. But as pure self, doing nothing. The pure self is doing nothing. Ichha dvesa sukham dukham ityadinam kshetra dharmatva kathanat prakriti eva cha karmani kriyamanani iti maya karyatva vyapadesacha. And Bhagavan has also mentioned earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, verse number 14 of the 5th chapter. He'll mention that. We'll do the Shankara Bhashya, which is very interesting. So Bhagavan has already mentioned, I do nothing. Who is doing it? Swabhavata. Because of your ignorance, it appears as if the Atma is doing all this. I'm doing nothing actually. So, this is another beautiful way to look at it. Is just imagine there was water and its dharma is to go down, isn't it? It will flow from a higher plane to lower plane. And this water is just doing its dharma, isn't it? That's another neutral example. So from the Himalayas, there is rain. It flows downwards. There is rain in the coastal areas. It flows downwards. There's no difference. The rule is one. Now, this water, they kind of combine, and there is a river or water flow, and it floods, and then we start accusing the water which is flowing down, just doing its dharma. Do you know it washed away 3 houses, it killed so many people, and so many hospitals were affected, and so many livelihoods were affected. The flood did everything, right? So this is attribution. The water is just doing its own dharma. Similarly, this Atma is just there in us, but we do attribution because of our false identification. We can correct our own dharmas. We can correct our own papa punya thing through karma yoga and through pasana. Bhagavan has given us a lot of advice in chapter 2, 3, 4. And he has given us very good lessons how to sort of deal with this phenomenal reality. And he will do it again in the next chapter. So prakriti karmani kriya. It's all because of Maya. Ata eva paramartha darshinam. Therefore, the one who is paramartha darshi, who is a jivana mukta, who has studied Upanishads, he doesn't do any karma. Neither he goes to his wife or children. It doesn't have. Generally, it's good if you take sannyasa before marriage, but some people also take sannyasa after marriage. Not a problem, not a disqualification in our tradition. If the wife permits, if you're a bachelor, the mother must permit. No, father has no right in our spiritual tradition, but mother has been given an ultimate pedestal. So the mother or the wife have to give you permission, but then one can take sannyasi. He doesn't have any karma adhikara. Sarva karma adhikara nibritihi iti prag vakhyatam. So Bhagavan in chapter 5 has already mentioned the sarva karma sannyasa yoga, that a person who has done a lot of karma yoga and upasana has got vairagya, and therefore he has taken sannyasa to go to a teacher and study Vedanta and do meditation and quieten his mind and look for himself or herself. In that case, he doesn't have any karma adhikara. That means he cannot sit and do a yajna kriya. He cannot do any sankalpa. Before any kind of ritual activity, you hold water and you say, on this date, at this place, I am son or daughter of this, I am doing this karma for my these phalas. The sannyasi has no phalas. Nishkama or Shakama, he has no karma adhikara. So you'll always find that in the sannyas ashrams, the beautiful thing is when they have to do a Santi Yajna, even for the benefit of the country or for society, what they do, they look for a married person or a guy who's a brahmachari who has not taken full sannyasa to sit there, but certain karmas require a wife. The brahmacharis cannot do those karmas, the yajnas and all. The wife has to be there, so she will look at that ghee, then it is purified, and she sort of, her left hand sort of touches the dhuti of this guy, or she puts her, some anchal or something on the dhuti of this guy. She transfers her consent. Yes, I agree. And that purification is a must, otherwise, no karma adhikara. So, bachelors cannot do a lot of karma. So, what he's saying is that they don't have any karma adhikara because they are sannyasis. That sentence, why they are all mentioning is that when a person increasingly starts identifying with the pure self, that means starts getting rid of the false identification with the body, with the mind, with his karma and everything, he is most likely to lose a lot of interest in any karma, and he will definitely completely abandon all sankalpatmaka karma with some phala asha. He will not do it. Even nishkama karma, slowly he will lose interest. Bhagavan has clarified he may continue to do karma for loka sangraha, just to set an example for others or for on compassionate grounds in order to benefit others. But he shall have no natural inclination. Like those of you who have read Plato, he talks about the philosopher being, what kind of a person he is. He's quick to understand, eager to know, but he's always interested in heavenly matter and philosophy and literature. He's not interested to be a king, but people pull him down because they need a king who's compassionate and wise, so they made him a king. But he's actually, from our standpoint, it's sort of a sannyasi. He is interested in the superior, subtle truths of life. He's not interested in house and car and wife and everything. Why they're talking about a philosopher king? Because they think that a person who is like Janaka, who is not interested in anything, will make the best king, but that's a dream of people. Now, so एतेन आत्मनः निर्धर्मकत्वकथनात् स्वगतभेदोऽपि निरस्तः. That स्वगतभेद. Vrikshasya swagata patra puspa phaladapi. So this vriksha is there, then patra, puspa, phala, these are different from the same tree. They are part of the tree. That is swagata veda. It is part of it and different from it. Like our nose, the nose is different from me. My eyes are different from me. Same way, the Brahma is nirdharmaka. It will not do anything. So the swagata veda and Sajatiya Veda, Vijatiya Veda, all are refuted. There are no two Brahmans, and there is nothing other than Brahman, and the Vijatiya Veda is also refuted. Prakriti Ayavacha Karmani Ityatra Sajatiya Vedo Nivarita. So it is the Prakriti which is doing things. There is just one Brahman, and it is not doing anything. Therefore, no Sajatiya Veda. There is no two Brahman. Yada Bhuta Prithag Bhava, that earlier verse we discussed, Ityatra Vijatiya Vedaha. So, who is the person who says that Atma is living in everything? There are differences, but all of it is only Atma, verily Brahman. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Sarvam Vasudevam iti Mananam. What is hinted? You try to look at everything as Atma. So Vijatiya, that Brahma has differences, that different kind of realities that you can refer to as Brahman, that is also refuted. All of it is verily Brahmaneva. And then Anaditwan Nirgunatvat Ityatra Sogata Veda iti Advitiyam Brahma eva Atma iti Siddham. So this Brahman is Aditya Atma. This is very established. That is what is mentioned. Now, this because we are doing Sankara Bhashya, even though Madhusudana has very explained everything nicely, we're just looking at it because there's a bit of philosophical argumentation in Sankara Bhashya, which may be of interest to those of you who are doing it for an academic purpose, but verily the message is clear in Madhusudana. But Sankara is actually the main, the Vedantic father who has written for the first time a clear Gita Bhashya. Nobody wrote it in such detail before him. Madhusudana is actually using Sankara Bhashya to comment further on it and all others. Therefore, we will look at Sankara Bhashya. Ekasya Atmana, there is only one Atma, Sarva Deha Atmatve, because it sort of identifies that Atma in all the physical bodies, the dosha sambandhe prapte idam uchyate. Why this verse is there, this anaditvat nirgunatvat? Because the doubt is there that there is one Atma, but it is there in all bodies, you mentioned in the previous verse, and therefore, what about the papa punya that are happening through this body, through this mind? How do these papa punya affect the Atma? Don't you think it affects? Therefore, the answer is that it is anadi, it is nirguna, it's not affected by anything. Anaditvad anadehe bhavo anadi. What is anadi? Beautiful. Shankaracharya is so simple. The bhava, what is the nature of anadi is explaining. The bhava of what doesn't have a beginning, that is anadi. Anaditvam, that is his bhava. What is the nature of this anaditvam? That is the dharma. Anadihi karanam yad yasya nasti tad anadihi, which doesn't have a causal history. There is nothing which precedes it, which causes it. Therefore, it's anadi. Anaditvat, it has this dharma. It is not caused by anything. That is how we define Atma. Yad Yadi anadimatva, anadimat tat svena atmana vyeti. Ayam tu anaditvat niravaiva iti kritva na vyeti. And then this anadi, this atma is also niravayava. It doesn't have a physical shape or size. So sansara may be created, sansara may also undergo laya or vilaya. Nothing affects that atma. Tatha nirgunatvat, and therefore, and secondly, it is also nirguna ataha, because it is nirguna, nirgunata, saguna hi gunatvat, vyeti, guna vyayat vyeti, ayam tu nirgunatvat, na vyeti iti paramatma ayam avyayo, na asya vyayo vidyate iti avyayaha. What is avyaya? There is no vyaya, there is no modification, there is no change, there is no loss. What is called avyaya. Why it is avyaya? He's saying that whatever is saguna, there is a green color. You put it in the sun, it fades, it becomes light green. You put it in the sun for a long while, it may become white. It has a quality called green color. That faded away. But the Brahman has no qualities. So there is no modification. Only if it has any dharma can it undergo any modification. That is what he broadly says. Yataha evam ataha sarirasthopi, because it is nirguna and it is anadi and it is niravayava. It has no body, it has no beginning, no causal aspect, and it has no qualities. And therefore, sarirasthopi, even though we see it as inhabiting in all of us, in all the physical bodies, sarireshu atmanaha upalabdhir bhavati iti sarirastha uchyate. Why we say sarirastha, the atma is sarirastha? Because we recognize the sarira. Without that consciousness, is as good as dead, isn't it? We can't even refer to as a human being. And it is upalabdhi, we can recognize there is presence of this atma, therefore we call it sarirastha. Okay? Iti sarirastha uchyate tathapi na karoti. Even we might describe the atma as sarirastha, sarire tishtati iti sarirastha. Even then it doesn't do anything. And tad akaranadeva, na karoti already Madhusudan explained beautifully, I don't want to repeat it. Tad akaranat, so it doesn't do any work, and therefore tad falena na lipyate. That Madhusudan also beautifully explained. जो कुछ करता नहीं है उसे कोई फल भोगना नहीं पड़ता है. यो ही करता सकर्म फलेन लिप्यते, अयम तु अकर्ता, अतः न फलेन लिप्यते इत्यर्थः. This atma is akarta. Had it been the karta, it will have any papa punya, but the atma is the akarta and therefore doesn't have papa punya. Then there is a question. This is the beauty of Sankaracharya. The student will now ask a question. अच्छा, आत्मा का कोई पाप नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है. अच्छा, अभी बताइए, कह पुनर्देह सुकरोति, फिर करता कौन है? काम कौन करता है? गाली कौन खाता है? रिवॉर्ड्स कौन लेता है? पैसा कौन कमाता है? आप कह रहे हैं उसका मतलब आप दो तीन चीज कहें, या तो और कोई है जो कर रहा है, आत्मा नहीं है. शरीर करने लायक है नहीं. शरीर करने लायक होता तो मरने के बाद भी शरीर कुछ कर पाता. While sleeping, the body doesn't do anything. After death, the body cannot do anything. So it cannot be body. There has to be somebody who is doing it. You are saying the self doesn't do it. Atma doesn't do it. So who is doing it? Beautiful question, isn't it? So that is what he is first putting it through the mouth of a student, and then Sankara Bhashyakar will also explain it. Kaha punar deheshu karoti lipyate cha. So who is the one then doing all the things and getting papa punya? Because we jivas are called papis and punyatmas. We are given some accolades and praise, and sometimes we are kind of subjected to a lot of bharshana, a lot of criticism. Yadi tavat anyah paramatmanah dehi karoti, if there is somebody else living in us who is different from Paramatma, so dehi karoti lipyate cha tataha idam anupapannam uktam khetra khetragyam ekatvam If you are agreeing that there is somebody else who is doing, that is a conscious thing and it's different from this particular Parameshwara Atma, then why did you tell us in the beginning of this chapter, my dear sir, Kshetra and Kshetrajna are one? Have Viveka, Kshetrajna is consciousness, the body, the Jada is this Sarira. However, ultimately, Kshetra and Kshetrajna are non different. That is what you have said. Ekatvam. Kshetragyam chapimam vidhi ityadi. You just mentioned that I am the Kshetragya in this body. And now you are saying there is someone else is doing it. So that means there are a lot of, you said there is one Kshetragya. And now you are saying that someone else is doing all this. You are contradicting yourself. That is what the question is saying. Ataha nasti Ishwarad anyo dehi kah karoti. So, other than Ishwara, as per your words, sir, there cannot be anyone else. So then who is doing all this? Who is doing Papa Punya? काम कौन करता है? गाली कौन खाता है? प्राइज कौन लेता है? He's questioning. कहा करोति लिप्यते स इति वाच्यम. So you have to explain all this. And then he's saying, otherwise, parova, then sarirat parova. Parova, if you're not saying or koi, parova, nasti iti, then you have to say that, okay, the body alone is real and there is no atma, nothing, you refuse it. Then he's saying, sarvatha durvachyam durbodhyam cha iti. You know, this is a beautiful sentence. Before I read out the sentence, I'll tell you what happens in Indian joint families. The classic case of an Indian joint family is the very sweet sour relationship we notice between the daughter in law and the mother in law. And in those families where you have one or two, earlier, these days everyone has just one. Well, earlier, if you just had two, three daughter in laws and one mother, and the mother in law shouts at the daughter in law, and the daughter in law gives it back how? Yeah, you're so good. That's why I'm the only daughter in law who is here to take care of you. All others have abandoned you because of your sweet, nice behavior. You can see it in many movies. Similarly, the student is kind of is challenging Bhagavan Shankaracharya, is chiding, is teasing. The Vedanta is saying, Sarvatha Durvachyam Durvadyam Cha iti. Your Vedanta philosophy is Durvachya. The Atma is so Durvachya, so difficult to talk about, and so Durvodhya, so hard to understand, so complex. Bhagavat Proktam Upanishadam Darshanam. Your Upanishadic philosophy is so damn complex and difficult, and you say these and you change and you say नहीं नहीं ये मान लो वो मान लो आत्मा ऐसा है फिर कहते नहीं कुछ नहीं है इससे आगे है अवांग मनसो गोचर है फिर बात कैसे करें जाने कैसे अतः परित्यक्तम. Do you know a lot of people have abandoned this Vedantic philosophy? Who are they? Vaisesikehi, the Vaisesika Darsanas, Karnagar. He talks about something else. He says it's all born out of the atoms. This whole universe born out of atoms. So they're dualists. They are not Advaita Vedantists. Sankhyahi, they talk about Prakriti Purusha, but Purushas are many. They're different from Vedanta. Arhata, the Jaina philosophers, and Bodhisha and Buddhists, they talk about Anatma, they don't talk about Atma. So they all abandon this Upanishadic philosophy because you indulge in too much of cryptic sentences, you indulge in too much of philosophy which is not easily comprehensible by 99% of people who claim to be intelligent. Then he's answering very nicely, beautifully. Siddhanti says, Sankaracharya is saying, Tatra ayam pariharo bhagavata swena eva uttaha. तो भगवान तो अपने ही बता दिए हैं कैसे एक कोई करता है जो आत्मा नहीं है. भगवान himself has mentioned. Where? Verse number 14, chapter 5. And let me look at that verse for you. So in that chapter 5, what did he say? Na kartutvam na karmani lokasya sujati prabhu na karma phala sanyogyam swabhavastu pravartate nadatte kasyachit papam naseva sukritam vibhu ajnanena vritam jnanam tena muchyanti jantava. You are only imagining all this. The Atma doesn't do anything. Bhagavan himself is the swabhava, this ajnana, the avidya, as a result of which all these things happen. That means they appear to happen. Swabhavastu pravartate iti avidya matra swabhava. Swabhavik, whenever Shankaracharya uses Swabhavik, is very natural. In Vedanta, Swabhavik means somebody who is kind of ruled by his mistaken understanding, his faulty understanding, his ignorance. So avidya matra swabhavo hi karoti lipyati iti vyavaharo bhavati. It's because of that agyana that atma karta hai, वो लिप्त होता है, सो जाता है, उठता है, भागता है. These kind of sentences are applied as a result of our ignorance regarding what this atma is. न तो परमार्थतः. Ultimately, all this is a joke, is a story. एकस्मिन् परमात्मनि तद अस्ति न तो paramarthatah. For ultimately there is only one self, and we cannot attribute all these happenings in samsara through our individual lives to that Paramatma. Ultimately, it's not there. But at a very phenomenal level, we can talk about it. We can attribute it to our individual self or whatever. But that is because of ignorance. Tab ekasmin paramartha sankhya darsane Stitanam Jnana Nishtanam. Now, here the Sankhya Darsana is not the Sankhya Purusha Prakriti, but Sankhya is Jnana Yogina. In the chapter 2, that Sankhya. Ekasmin Paramartha Sankhya Darsana. He is differentiating from the normal Sankhya Darsana. This is Paramartha Sankhya, that Atma Vijnana Sambandhita Darsana, Jnana Darsane, Stitanam Jnana Nishtanam. Those who have been established in this Jnana Yoga, Atma Nishta. Jnananishtanam Paramahansa Paribrajakanam, those who are sannyasis and wandering monks. Tiraskrita avidya vyavaharanam, those who have already abandoned this sort of vyavahara, that I will do this yaga, I'll go to Swarga, I will do this house and have so many children and take care of my grandchildren. These avidya vyavaharanam karmadhikaro nasti iti. Therefore, they don't have any karma adhikara. They have abandoned the sansara, this phenomenal reality. Iti tatra tatra darsitam bhagavata. Bhagavan has verily mentioned it in chapter 5, even earlier when he was explaining to Arjuna that you cannot run away to take sannyasa. You are not yet ready. If you do it, it will become mithyachara because you will continue to do shankalpa. You haven't graduated to that level of vairagya to be able to take sannyasa fruitfully. Now we'll look at the verse number 32 and 33 together. Now, in the verse number 32 and 33, Bhagavan is essentially giving certain examples. Is giving certain examples or illustrations as to how the Atma is present in all of us, and yet it doesn't have to be involved, it doesn't have to be attributed with agency. That is what he's explaining. And he takes two examples, two comparable instances. One is the akasa, the space. Space is everywhere. At one particular place, there is a dance. Another place, there is a dead body being burnt. Another place, a child is being born. At one place, there is water. Another place, there is desert. The space is not affected by any of this. Somebody is crying, somebody is laughing. Is the space affected? No. Space is not affected. So if you get into a restaurant, inside the restaurant, people are ordering food, and there are some people who are doing a job because they have a small, low salary. They are dependent on it. And outside, you have beggars. Within maybe 50 square meters, you have rich people ordering food, lower middle class and working class people working in that hotel. And outside, you have beggars or people loitering around expecting somebody to give them a coin or two. Is the space in that 50 square meters affected by any of this? It has nothing to do with any of this. But it is touching the lives of all of these people. And same also the air out there. All of them are breathing the air. And this air is giving them oxygen to all of them. It knows what's there inside because it goes to their heart and comes out. Maybe it knows all the sadness and happiness in the heart, but it doesn't get affected by it. That's one example. The other one is look at the sun. The sun similarly doesn't discriminate between a gutter or there's a stream of water or children or old person. Sun falls on all of us, gives us warmth in the winter or gives us heat in the summer. It doesn't discriminate. It is Sarvagata. Same way, he's giving these two examples in these verses. Yatha Sarvagatam Sokshmyad Akasam Nopalipyate Sarvatravastito Dehe Tathatmanopalipyate Yatha Sarvagatam Sokshmyad. This Akasa is Sarvagata, all pervading, but it's too subtle because it is Sukshma, and therefore Nopalipyate, na upalipyate. It doesn't get entangled in anything. Sarvatra avastito dehe. Same way. Now the Drashtantika, what we are discussing. Same way, this Atma, even though it's there in all the bodies, Dehe, Tatha, Atma, na upalipyate. The way the Akasa is Sarvagata, but it is Sukshma and subtle and therefore doesn't get entangled. Same way, the Atma is in there in all bodies. It is living or not living, plant or animal or human, but it doesn't get entangled. Next verse. Yatha Yatha prakasyत्यekah krishnam lokamimam ravihi Yatha prakasayatyekah krishnam lokamimam ravihi Kshetram kshetri tatha krishnam prakasayati bharata Yatha prakasayati ekah ekah ravi. It gives you prakasha, it illuminates. Krishnam lokam imam. Completely, without discriminating, without leaving anything out. Of course, the inside cave, the sunlight cannot go. But it doesn't have any discrimination policy when it comes to spreading its light all over. So comprehensively, it spread lights on this on earth. Kshetram kshetri tatha krishnam. Tatha kshetri krishnam. Kshetram prakasayati. This Khetri, which is Khetragya, same way, illuminates by its very presence. It is Swayam Prakashamaya. It illuminates this Khetra, which is this body, this mind, this whole complex, body-mind complex. He Bharata, he Arjuna. That is how he has given two examples. Now, this is very short. Let's look at the Sankara Bhashya. Kim iva na karoti, give me some example. Kaise nahi karta hai? Na lipyate ityatra drishtantam aha. He's giving illustrations. Yatha sarvagatamiti. Yatha sarvagatam akasham. Okay, the akasha, because it is sarvagata. Yatha sarvagatam vyapyapi tat sukshmyad sukshma bhavat akasam cha. Akasam is come. Come and akasam is one and the same. It's space. Na upalapyate, na sambadhyate. Sarvatra avastito dehe. Same way, this Atma is there in all the bodies. Tatha Atma na upalipyate. Same way, this Atma doesn't get entangled. Kincha. Yatha prakasayati iti. The next verse is talking about another example of the sun. Yatha prakasayati ababhasayati ekaha. Ekah ravihi prakasayati ababhasayati. It sets everything, puts brightens everything, highlights everything. It sort of illuminates everything. Krishnam lokam imam, this whole sansara, completely, comprehensively, without leaving out anything. Ravihi eka ravihi savita aditya. The Ravi is giving another two words that is called savita, it's called aditya. Tatha, similarly, tadvan, exactly like that. Mahabhutadi Drityantam Kshetram Ekaha. So if you remember the Kshetra, the definition in the beginning of this chapter, he was mentioning that what is Kshetra, starting with in all the subjective things, and finally he mentioned until Driti. You remember that verse number? Just let me look at it. Okay, so he's this verse. I have to look. Verse number 6. Ichha dvesha sukham dukham sanghatas chetana dhriti etat khetram samasena savikaram udahritam. So that he mentioned in the verse number 6 of this chapter. So he was mentioning that Ichhadvesa, the subject aspects, these are also Kshetra. And this Atma pervades everything, starting with the self, the prana, the indriyas, and all the subjective states. It permeates all that. And therefore, he's saying that until Dhriti, all this, it completely sort of illuminates. तथा प्रकाशयति अवभासयति एकः कृष्णं लोकमिमं रविः सविता आदित्यः तथा तद्वत् महाभूतादि, starting with this akasa vayu, महाभूतादि धृत्यंतम, until dhriti kshetram ekah san prakasayati, that ravi, that atma is one and it's able to illuminate all of it. San prakasayati kaha, who is that which is giving prakashana, illumination to all the kshetri, that is Kshetrajna, Paramatma ityartha. Ravi Drishtanto atra atmanah ubhayartha api bhavati. Ravi vata sarva khetreshu ekaha atma. So, so this atma, like the sun is everywhere giving light, same way this atma, okay, sarvatra, all lepakascha iti. And then the sun gives light everywhere, but it is absolutely not getting entangled in anything. And let's look at the verse number 34. Then, or just let's look at Madhusudana if there is something. We have time to conclude the last verse. Therefore, we can look at a little of Madhusudana. So, is there anything interesting? I'll just look at, Anaditva. No, it's more or less repetition of what we are reading. Okay, so in the verse number 31, he says, Sokshimayat asangatva abhavat, asanga swabhavat. So this Atma is asanga swabhava, asangu hi ayam Atma. This Atma is verily without a second. It's always alone. Why? Because it is everywhere. There is no sajatya veda. It cannot have a friend. That is the beauty of it. That cannot have a friend or an enemy because it's alone there and it's everywhere. So it cannot have a friend to talk to, cannot have an enemy to fight with. So kevalam asanga swabhavatvad atma na upalipyate. There has to be something with which it can be upalipta, it can be entangled, but it's everywhere. Now, if you think there has to be some sanyoga vyoga. So if I have this finger, it's connecting with another finger. So there is a sanyoga, it's separating, that is vyoga or vibhaga. Now, because there are two fingers, I can talk about sanyoga vibhaga, or I can talk about touch or separation. But this is one atma. So this sanyoga, vibhaga, and that is getting upalipta, these things don't apply. Prakasakatvad api prakashya dharmehi na lipyate. And the atma is prakasha. What is prakasya? The khetra, the jadavarga. This buddhi and dhriti, all the subjective states. These are prakasya. What is illumined? And there is an illuminator. The self is the illuminator. Everything else is illumined. Now, in a room, there are 25 things, and we go inside that room with a torchlight. The torchlight is the illuminator. The 25 things which are there lying on the bed and the table and stuff like that, they are the illumined, the prakashya. This is prakashaka. The prakashaka is not affected by what is prakashita or what is prakashya. So the jada varga, the sansara, everything, the sarira, deha, mana, everything, prakashya. And it is prakashaka, it's not affected by what is prakashita. Then, of course, we will also refute that is there anything different from the Atma which is prakashita? No. Because of Agyan, we talk like that. Because we just earlier were said, the apparent differences notwithstanding, the Jnani only finds sarvam vasudevamiti. Everywhere, this only Atma he is seeing, because that is the substantial reality. The apparent differences he dismisses. Tatha ravi ekaha eva krishnam sarvam imam lokam dehendriya sanghatam. What is that sarvam imam lokam? If somebody asks, dehendriya sanghata, this you have this body, you have these senses, and this combination that we call a human system, that illuminated by that rupavat vastumatramiti yavat. Prakasayati nacha prakasya dharmehi lipyate. Again, that consciousness is illuminating, making everything sensible, but it's not getting touched by any of these. Nava prakasya bhedat vidyate. And because the sun is falling on a gutter, a beautiful lake, a swimming pool, little boys, old people, is the sun getting differentiated? Because it shows the wrinkles on the face of the old, it shows a lovely smile on the face of a child, it shows maybe sadness on the face of a person who is having some problem. The sunlight is not sad or happy or old. This is a beautiful thing. Similarly, this Atma is in all of us, and it will only reflect and illuminate what we have because of our Purva Papa Punya. But it's not affected by it, and it's not getting separated or or not undergoing any kind of modification because of what our systems are. यथा क्षेत्री क्षेत्रज्ञ एकव कृष्णं क्षेत्रं प्रकाशयति हि भारत अतएव न प्रकाश्य धर्मे हि लिप्यते न वा प्रकाश्य भेदाद् विद्यते इत्यर्थः सूर्यो यथा सर्वलोकस्य चक्षुर्न लिप्यते. The way the sun yatha sarvalokasya chakshuhu, that Surya is verily the eye of all of us. Because without the sun, can you see anything? In a dark night, we can't see anything. It's the sun which is enabling us to see anything. Chakshu na lipyate, chakshu sehi vahya dosehi. And then there are certain chakshus or dosas. Somebody has jaundice, he will see things as yellow. Somebody has some cataract, he will see something. The sun is not affected by this. These dosas are in you. Sun is giving light to all. Somebody is able to see this thing correctly, another fellow isn't able to see it correctly. He has some problem in his lens, his eyesight. Sun is not responsible. The Atma is not responsible for any Papa Punya we do. That is because of the karmic load on us, this human system. We need to fix it. But Bhagavan says, if you focus your eyes on me, then because you're going to ask me, why should I do Vedanta? The Atma has no role in my life, it seems. No, it has a big role. If you focus your attention on the Atma, if we focus our attention on Atma and Bhagavan, Bhagavan has assured us that he will come to take care of us. In what sense? When our mind focuses on that higher reality, the lower reality starts getting corrected because of a new understanding which becomes a part of the system. The operating system in our computer changes. When the operating system changes, the computer behaves differently. That is the secret here. The Bhagavan says, you cannot defeat Maya. There's only one way, and that way is to focus on me. So that is the relevance of Vedanta. This is not to say Atma kuch karta nahi, to Atma Gyan ke piche hum kyun bhage? That would be a stupid question. Bhagavan has assured us that this particular reorientation is in fact the only key to unravel the mystery of life and to defeat all agony and pain and frustration and stay away from the foolish, delusional entrapment in what we call happiness, and which is ultimately nothing other than sadness, which comes up dressed like a bride only to hunt us like a witch. It'll just change in 2 seconds. That's what life is all about. So we got to be careful. That's what Bhagavan is saying. So that is how it's saying. So he's saying that prakasayati, it's not affected by that particular thing. Ha, suryaho yatha sarva lokasya chakshu na lipyate chakshusei vahya dosehi. Ekah tatha is one. Ekas tatha sarva bhutaranta. Bhuta antaratma na lipyate loka dukkhena vahyah. This antaratma, sarva bhuta antaratma. All of us, living or dead, living or non-living, chara or achara, moving or non-moving, that antaratma, that antaryami Brahman is all of us. It's not affected. Loka dukkhena bahyaha. Loka dukkha will include sukha as well. Our happiness and sadness is not touched by it. Iti shrutehe. Idanim adhyayartha safalam upasangharati kshetriti. Let's go to the next verse. क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञयोर एवं अंतरम ज्ञान चक्षुषा Bhuta prakriti moksham cha ye viduhu yanti te param. Now this is the Upasangara, the last verse of this chapter. He's saying Kshetra Kshetragyayor, of Kshetra and Kshetragya, of what is seen and what is the seer, that primal consciousness, that Atma. Evam Antaram Jnana Chakshusha Drishtva. If you are able to understand this, there is one Kshetra, Kshetragya, many Kshetras apparently, but that Kshetragya is inhabiting in all of us because of our previous load of Papa karmas and Punya karmas. This Kshetragya takes up the appearance of a man and a woman and a rich and a poor guy and a happy and a sad guy, depending on the situation and depending on the load of Papa Punya. And then what he's saying, Evam antaram jnana chakshusha. You cannot see all this through your naked eyes, but only through that Atma Vijnana. That is the Jnana Chakshu. That Atma Jnana Chakshusha. Bhuta Prakriti Moksham. Then you can be released from this Bhuta Prakriti. You can be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Cha ye biduhu, the one who understands this yanti te param. They will get that, they will have that liberation, they will get that paramam padam, they will get that ultimate realization of the self and not be troubled by the sansara anymore. Let's look at Shankarabhasya first and then we'll go to Madhusudana. Otherwise, we will have a concluding session tomorrow, or let's stop here. We will do a little of this commentary tomorrow and then we'll do the summary as per our standard practice. So we will do the summary of this verse tomorrow. Tomorrow is anyway a Saturday, and we'll have a day off on Sunday, and we'll come back on Monday for chapter 14. So I'll bring this satsang to an end. Any questions you can ask? I'm bringing